going online, is doing different things. Everyone has the best solution on the planet, right? You definitely have to buy from almost everyone today. And you as a customer, especially as a company, you have to decide at some point, okay, who am I going with? Who am I want to work with? You know, what is my long-term goal here as a company, right? And that's where the relationship moment comes into place. Next slide, please. Yeah. And this is the formula that took me a while. It sounds very simple on the slide, right, if you read it, but that's the key thing, guys. That is the key thing, how I always did it, and I always will do. And I just want to give you guys some ideas today, and hopefully you go away in the evening and you process some of the things and really feel, okay, this is something I might want to try myself with any kind of prospect, B2B sales, obviously, right? But that also works in B2C sales. If you're talking to direct customers, by the way, you can also use that. And starting with the personality part, right? This is really, really interesting, because think about it yourself. If you think about yourself and who you are and how you are working with people, engaging, creating relationships, interesting to me, a lot of people do not even know who they are. A lot of people have no idea who they are. They just live a life every day, build a routine for themselves 24/7, 9 to 5, doing the same things over and over again. But what makes them really special? What makes them really special? This is really something that I wanted to give you today as kind of like a question that you have to think about, because that's really, really important, because this is something that you're going to use in your relationship building process. Because you just don't want to talk about someone as a salesperson to any kind of prospect you're talking to. You want to talk about, you know, who you are. You want to talk about as the person who you are. And then the next point is something that comes with it, not automatically, which is something that you have to train, but you have to build empathy. You have to be empathetic with people. And what I'm saying is very, very key here right now. If you talk to any prospect, to any company, please don't make that mistake. And I really say mistake on purpose, because I truly believe that you're not talking to a company, you're talking to this one individual person right now, right? So keep an eye on that person. Try to understand who that person is, and not just think about the company and what kind of deal you might get out of it, or any kind of money or sale or deal that you're going to close. This comes at some point. Don't get me wrong, it's still very important, because you work maybe for a company, or you work even more importantly for yourself, and you want to grow your own business. So obviously you want to close deals. You want to make money, which is fine. But if you don't have the first steps in place by building that relationships and creating the empathy for this person that you're just now talking to, the rest is not going to work out. Very, very important. Next thing is knowledge. Knowledge, and knowledge doesn't mean that you have to understand the customer or the company or the person you're talking to in and out, but you should have some kind of understanding. What kind of company are you about to call? What company are you about to talk to about certain things? You don't have to be a specialist, but if you just do your research, Google is your friend. You just type in the company, you basically type in the person. You might find them on LinkedIn. You see what this person is doing. What is this person posting? What is this person interested in? And use that as an advantage, guys. I mean, today we are so global, we are so close to each other in a way. You find basically information about anyone. You can, I mean, seriously, even myself, which is interesting when I Google myself. I was like, okay, people know more than I thought about myself. But the last point is the strategy, and we obviously also talk about that in a second. But I just wanted to point that out. All those 4 points together, that is going to build a success that you want to have as a manager, maybe as a salesperson, working for a company, but even more importantly, maybe also working for yourself if you're just starting out, right? If you're creating a sales team from scratch and you want to get an understanding of how you could work and what you should do, this is a very good way to start. Next slide, please. All right, here we go. So, sales is a very interesting space to be in, because sales at the end of the day is a roller coaster, right? I mean, I worked in sales for many, many years, and trust me, is like the economy. It's an up and down. It's a very emotional journey, right? So the first thing that you have to ask yourself, if you want to start in sales, for example, or you want to build a sales team as a startup you might work for, or you create it yourself, you have to understand one thing. What is actually the attitude? What is the motivator that this person is bringing to the table? Why do someone want to work in sales? You know, some people might say, I want to become rich, because sales is the place to go. If you want to make big money, you're going to go into sales. Fair enough. That's fair enough. If you want to become rich, that's great. Why not? We all want to have money. Money makes life easier, right? It doesn't solve all the problems, but it makes life easier. So if you want to do that, you still have to ask yourself, is that one of the things that keeps me moving? Is it really the main motivator that keeps me moving for months, maybe even for years? Because some of the deals that you want to close start in January, but take until December. And you have to stick to it. You have to stick through it. You got to make it happen. So what kind of motivation do you have as a salesperson or someone who's trying to hire the right people? What do you see in them that they have as a motivation to make it happen? Really, really, really important. Because you can have the best strategy on the planet. If you do not have the persistency, if you do not have the right motivation working in sales, it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. Next point is personality. And again, we talked about that even for a second, right? So what I always did at the very beginning, guys, when I wanted to better understand why people like me. Why do people build trust with me? Why do people like working with me, right? You know what I did? I talked to my people. I talked to my friends. Think about it yourself. If you talk to your friends, they are friends because of a reason, obviously, right? Because they trust you. They come to you if they want to talk to you about something. And it's the exact same thing that you want to have your customers do. Your customer, your partner, wants you to understand what their need is. They want to trust you. And I really mean that on a personal level. It's not, again, forget about the business side at the very beginning. It's about this trust-building process that you have to create as a foundation. Very, very, very important. And then obviously we're going to talk about the strategy in a minute. So talk to your friends, talk to your neighbor. If you have a great relationship with your neighbor that you're living right next to for the last 20 years already, they might like you, right? There must be something. So definitely something you should look into. Next slide, please. Here we go. Okay. Oh, can you just go one back if you don't mind? There you go. Thank you very much. So this is always something that also took me a while, and when I'm talking to early startups, especially when I work with incubators, that topic always comes up. Control your inner and outer behavior. So just ask yourself, if you get a phone call, you're working for a company, and you get a phone call from a salesperson. Sometimes you have a salesperson who might be very personal, who maybe already understands, okay, this is the process that you have to go to build something in the first place. But then you have salespeople where you feel very much, oh my God, this is very pushy here right now, right? This is very much straight into your face. I can tell in a second if someone wants to sell me something. And then you're completely off. You're just losing it, right? You don't even want to talk to the guy. You don't even want to listen anymore because you only understand one thing. This guy now wants to get money from me. He wants to sell me something, he wants to close a deal, and then he wants to move on maybe, right? So what's important as a salesperson or someone who wants to hire people for the startup, really understand that you have to control your inner and outer behavior and keep it separate. That means, as a salesperson, obviously, let's say you work for an enterprise company, they usually have very high sales quotas, right? You have to hit a target. It's very numbers driven, obviously. So, in that case, you still have to understand, okay, what process do I need to have in place in order to hit my number at the end of the day, to close enough deals to be successful, to obviously also earn some commission, besides my little salary that you normally get, right? So it's all about the commission. So that's something that you keep for yourself. You keep it within yourself. You know exactly where you're heading to, and you go 24/7 and understand, okay, this is my process that I'm going after. I have to do this step. I have to be persistent. I have to do as many calls a day, have enough meetings a week, every month, and really going to the next steps and really following up with people. Those kind of typical steps that you always do as a salesperson. You know that, but that doesn't mean that you have to tell the customer by how you are behaving towards them. But trust me, a lot of people still do, but you feel like, oh my God, I expected him to say that right now. I expected him to give me that approach or give me that pitch. That's tiring. I don't want to hear that. I know that stuff. I have 50 phone calls from salespeople every day. So keep that separate. And then on the outside, obviously, just be who you are and be how you are, and basically how you would talk to people that you trust yourself and want to be friends with and want to create a partnership with, right? So really keep that separate. Next slide, please. There you go. So, am I wrong if I'm saying, like, the world became a little bit more selfish? If you think about it yourself, that doesn't mean we are bad people, but of course, if you have something that you want to do with your life, you think about yourself as well, right? You want to be understanding, okay, this is something that I want to create for my life. I want to be successful, so obviously it's about me, and how do I make this happen? What kind of steps do I have to take in my life, right? And that's the same with customers. They don't even know what it is sometimes, but they just see a sales sign. Oh my God, it's 50% off? Okay, I'm buying it. I might not even need it, but hey, 50% off, that's beautiful. Let me just buy it and just move on, right? So that's the same thing when you talk to someone. You just want to make sure that they obviously want to be treated in a very nice way as well, right? So put yourself into the customer's shoes and treat the people the same way you want to be treated. Bottom line, nothing more to say about that. Please, next slide. There you go. I know this looks very overwhelming, and I don't really talk about every little detail in detail, but I just wanted to point that out to you guys very quickly, which is the guideline of how you should go about, let's say, a pre-meeting process and also the meeting process, right? So let's start from the very beginning on top, preparation. We talked about that for a little second, right? So talking about the person and the company, doing your research, getting kind of a basic understanding of what the person is doing and what the company overall is doing and what their goals might be for this year, right? Very first idea. Next one is you create the connections, referrals, or any kind of person that you might know who already has kind of a contact within the company or a person you want to talk to, right? That doesn't always happen, but you might find mutual people that you have on LinkedIn. So really try to find some kind of connection which makes your life so much easier, obviously, right? And again, if you don't have that, that's fair enough. It is fair enough. You can still call people, talking specifically about a call and not just an email, because a call is definitely more personal and more, verbal, obviously. So what do you do when you want to create a report on a first phone call, which we know as the cold call, right? Which no one likes. No one likes a cold call. And why is that? Oh my God, because you've never talked to the person before. What does this person might think about you that you're calling this person out of the blue? But think about it yourself. You're so confident within yourself and you know who you are and what you're doing. You basically just call the person up. You obviously explain who you are and what you do, but then really trying to turn it around and just take an example that you might found online, anything that they're maybe working on right now, something that they might facing, that this person might faces with his department that you want to address. And you just wanted to get more of an understanding because you work with different companies in the same sector, how they might deal with the situation, as you already did with similar companies in the same area. And then you just stop and let the customer talk. Let the prospect talk to you. And based on that, and this is really, really, really important, and I can't stress that enough, don't be so much prepared that you already know what to ask next. Don't do it that way, because that comes across like, okay, he got this all written down. Okay, he got this question written down, this one, and this one. Just ask, listen, and care. This is so, so important, guys. I can't stress it enough. It sounds maybe basic and simple to some people, but you ask a question, open-minded question, obviously, and you stop and you're actively listening because you're obviously creating another question out of the answer that this person is giving you. And you know what happens? This person is reacting in a way and thinking, wow, he just understood what I was telling him. And he even asked me a question about what I was just telling the person. Do you know how powerful that is? It's super powerful because people want to be cared for. They want to understand that someone just listened and just gave something back. Guys, please, this is super, super important. Please keep that in mind and process that when you go home tonight and you're sleeping and, dream about it, think about it for a second. And then obviously add value. And I'm a big fan of the medic plus spin methodology, which I think works very nicely as a combination. And some people might have never seen the medic approach. It's just like a short version of, the metrics, then the economic buyer, then the decision maker, decision criteria, also like the pain that they have, plus the champion that you might talk to right now, plus the competition. Those are the short like letters of the overall idea. So what you do is you basically work your way around these methodologies. And to give you kind of a very interesting example is we take the spin as kind of a beginning approach and then go more into detail with the medic approach. So the spin means we have an overall situation that you create, right? this is the kind of rapport that you build, and you get kind of a situation, like an understanding of the situation, of what this person might faces and what the struggle is, what the departments are doing, and how this person might be connected to the overall decision-making process. Because just think about one thing, and we talk about that in a minute. Just because you have a good relationship with this one person that you're talking to doesn't mean that he's the guy who's making a decision or is holding the budget. And you have to find out at some point. But again, after you build even a relationship with this person. Don't ever make that mistake just thinking, oh, he's not even the right, or she is not even the right person I have to talk to. So I don't really spend much time on this relationship. It's not worth it, you know, because they can't really help me. Don't ever think that way, because again, this person might be your internal champion. And the internal champion is one of the most powerful tools that you can have as a salesperson on the market, because they're gonna run for you internally. And obviously, if you think about it yourself, you're working for a company, who do you trust the most? Your own people. Obviously, if an internal champion comes up to you, like one of your guys in your department, and they tells you about something that they saw and they love it so much, the manager is gonna listen, obviously. If I'm calling in, never talked to the guy before, they might say, oh my goodness, this dude again, really? Oh shoot, all right. Anyway, so this is one of the things that I really wanted to point out. Just do your research on MEDDIC and SPIN. Really try to process that. When you start doing it, you might forget one of the points, right? Which is fair enough. But still understand that the situation you have to understand and the person you want to talk to is really, really key. And by the way, never be afraid to ask the hard questions. Really, really important. Ask the hard questions. If you understand that this person might not be the right person to talk to, you don't say, oh, I think you're not the right one, so who do I have to talk to? Obviously, you don't say that. But you just ask them, okay, did I understand correctly that you are responsible for this kind of area? So who do you report to get an understanding how you are connected to maybe the upper management, who's then really talking to you about the certain situations that you are responsible for? So trying to work your way up by asking indirect questions that is not obviously being very painful to listen to, right? So almost last, reflect. Every call at the end of the day, I mean, comes to an end, obviously, but it's important that you just reflect what you guys just talked about, because the customer, you know, it's interesting at the beginning when you talk to someone and you have a first phone call with someone, almost I would say 60–70% of the content that you tell those people, they can't even remember. They can't even remember. Because at the beginning, it's even more about the tone and how you carry yourself in the first phone call. The rest for the customer is almost gone. It's just like, it's like a funnel, like a tunnel almost. They have this tunnel view, right? So what you have to do is just reflect and repeat to the customer, to the prospect, what you just discussed today, to make them understand, you know, this is the reason why we're now going into the next step. You have to make them understand why you now together going to the next step. And the next step, also something that you have to keep in mind if you have a very first phone call, you know, and we talked about the relationship building process, you never forget about the next step, which is the presentation. The presentation. You want to show something to someone, because you can talk about stuff 24/7, you know. They want to see something at some point. So what you do, you reflect, you repeat the things that you discussed, so you have a good understanding, but then you obviously also wanted to tell the customer or the prospect, hey, you know what? I really want to invite you to a presentation. I just wanted to show it to you. We just talk about it, but I think you even want to show and want to see how you can use it, and I have the idea to even make you part of the presentation, so even you can use it yourself. So if you have a startup, if you have a technology which is even ready for a customer to use while you have a presentation, like a trial version, try to get them involved. Try to make them even using this presentation with you, right? Because it gets them hooked. They feel like, oh wow, I can do so much more than I even thought. That's so interesting. And they're gonna start playing around. So if you have a technology, if you have a startup and you have a trial version, anything that you can give for free, obviously, just let them try it for a week, for 2 weeks, and just get back to them. And trust me, most of the time they have even more use cases that you discussed before, right? So take a next action. That was the next step, right, which is the presentation. Please, to the next slide. If it works. The next slide is not coming. That's okay. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So we're almost there, guys. But this is a very interesting slide that I already discussed a little bit, but a little bit more into detail. The influence model of building power. Just think about that for a second. The influence model of building power. Awareness, perception, attitude, behavior. And this goes on both sides, by the way. But let's start from our side. We just talking to someone. We just calling someone up. The first thing that you want to create is awareness. You want to have the prospect you're talking to, you want to create something. So you have to give them something that you create this awareness, that they notice something that they might be interested in. That's why you did your research for, right? That's why you are prepared and you know what you're talking about. You're trying to hit those buzzwords that gets this person interested, right? Next one is perception, because this awareness is going to create a perception. This is going to how they see you, how they hear you, how they feel you over the phone, right? And this is already the start of the relationship building process, right? So never underestimate that. And then obviously, this is going to lead into the emotional phase of how they think and feel talking to you. Isn't that interesting? That's the same thing that we do in real life, by the way, in personal life. Think about it yourself. We want to build relationship with family, friends, people we know. We do the same thing, but we do it subconsciously. We don't even think about it. And then as soon as we go to work, as soon as we start working for someone or start working for our own company, it almost feels like we forget about it. It almost feels like it's just gone, right? So think about those things and try to connect it even with your personal life of how you would explore and to really establish something like that from that perspective, right? And then obviously, it all turns out at the end in the behavior of what they're gonna do for you or with you, which is then the next step to the presentation, because they feel so comfortable by you creating this model. And out of a sudden, you are in a different position as the one who just called up out of the blue. You have created some power for yourself and your company. And then the journey goes on. Next slide, please. I feel it's coming. There you go. Last slide, last but not least. Definitely I wanted to stress that because, you know, in sales it's very interesting. When you start out in sales or you have your startup and you never worked in sales, but you know, as we talked about, this is the engine that keeps the business running. You have to understand one thing, the 80-20 rule. A lot of you guys might heard about the 20-80 rule, but again, think about it for yourself. You can talk to certain companies like all day long and you have a good feeling and you build great rapport and you feel like you're almost friends and it's beautiful and you want to go out for dinner and whatever, you know, but there is no real business. There is nothing for you right now. And you gotta realize that. It's super important that you realize that and not really wasting your time on something that's not really happening at the moment. That doesn't mean your time is wasted to create this relationship. You obviously wanna keep that relationship and wanna grow and establish it. But at some point you gotta stop for yourself and really think about, okay, I did all the process here with MEDDIC and SPIN and all those methodologies. But okay, it's just not the right timing. And most of the time, it is timing and budget. Timing and budget are most of the things basically that usually happens why it's not going to work out in the moment, right? Obviously. But you just follow up. You keep in touch because you want to build upon that relationship that you already built, right? And then at some point, if you have that relationship, which happens almost every time, the customer almost comes to you, the prospect, because they remember what you discussed and how they felt about the relationship and how much you cared for them. So they're going to reach out to you because, again, we have salesers everywhere, right? If you think about it, every company in different sectors always say they are the best. Think about it. Everybody's always the best. And I was like, okay, me as a prospect, what does that mean they are the best? But the other one also says they are the best. So who is the best now? I don't know. You got to tell me, right? And how do I make my decision? You also make a decision in life by how you feel about certain things, by how you feel about a person that you talk to who maybe has a solution that is the best, but you might want to work with that person because you felt that special thing that you have, right? And that's when you basically call this person up. So really never underestimate what you built today, which can lead into something tomorrow, maybe next year, maybe in 2 years, who knows? But just keep that relationship, right? Very important. And then, you know, that's basically all what it is. So 80% of your business comes from 20% of the companies you're working for or working with. That's how it is. So keep that relationships very close to you, but never forget about those 80% that are still out there. You still talk to them already. Keep in touch and build a relationship and business case over time with them, right? Guys, a lot of information, I know. When I heard that the first time, I was like, oh my God. You know, I got to sleep about that first. Thank you, guys. That's the last slide. Let's go to the next one, just to finalize. There you go. That's me again, right? The German guy who lived here, who went to the US, came back, and now I'm happy to help, you know, anyone who wants to start a business, anyone who's still working on the sales force, who already has some salespeople ready to go, I'm here to help you guys. I'm here to support you in any kind of approach you might want to take, and therefore I'm more than happy to talk to you. Thank you very much. Have a great evening, and thanks for having me. And thank you so much for your nice words. I feel like a different person now.
Thank you. Guys, thank you for listening so much to what Ben was saying, which is really connecting the dots about how we may take this to another level and build connections and be personable to one another and value the 80-20 principle. This is it, guys. You have been with us and given us your Saturday. Wow, amazing.